All right, so you're welcome back. And as promised earlier, Dr. Auma Obama is here. She is the founder and director of the Sauti Cool Foundation. They seek to give a voice to underprivileged, disadvantaged children and youth, and, to unlock their potential. As well, she is sister to U.S. President Barack Obama. It's a delight, a pleasure, an honor to have Dr. Auma with us. I just mentioned your name and my earring came off. I suppose this is a good sign. You're welcome to
we're women among ourselves.
Yes,
so
yes.
fine.
We understand how these things work. You're welcome. Is this your first time in Ghana?
Thank you for having me here. I was here briefly, but only at the airport one time.
I see.
That doesn't count. So this
no,
is my
it shouldn't count. This is your true first time.
Yes.
For most people you come into contact with, you're probably the closest they will get to meeting U.S.
You
President.
can touch me.
So I am taking all of this. So how does that make people treat you?
Well, I get a lot of good treatment because of it. So I have I owe my brother a lot because people give me a lot of attention. It opens many, many doors for me. It's given me the opportunity to meet great people, to go to great places like Ghana. So yes, it's really moved my life forward in a way that I don't think it would have happened if he wasn't president of the United States.
I see. I'm sure you've heard this introduction a lot of times, a zillion times over. Dr. Auma Obama, sister to President Obama. Does it ever make you feel like you're walking in his shadow, considering you're a very accomplished woman? I've read about you. You studied German from 1981 to 87. You earned your PhD in 19...
there comes the age thing. Yes, I've done
I will not mention the years anymore. Yes, I mean, so you're actually very accomplished. You've been awarded numerous prizes for the work you do. But, very often I'm sure you're referred to as sister to the president. Does it not make you feel like you're walking in his shadow?
I think what I work very hard at, because being his sister is not an accomplishment. It really isn't. I mean, not that anybody can aspire to that. So I say, don't be a role model. Don't see me as a role model because I'm Obama's sister, because it's not likely that we'll get another president like him from the continent. But what I try to do very hard is to make sure that I take this opportunity and make something of it. So I usually tell people, I walk into a place and I'm Auma Obama, the sister of Barack Obama, and I hope I leave with my first name being as equally important as my last name.
Right.
So I work very hard, and I'm very conscious of the privilege, but I'm also very conscious of the responsibility. So people assume that, oh, this is great, it's all easy, everything is, the doors are open for you, but it's a big responsibility. So all the roles I take, including the reason I'm here in Ghana for Story Moja as the patron, is that I take all my roles, the duties that I'm given through being his sister very, very seriously, and work very hard to make sure that I make a difference and make change happen in my capacity.
And you are doing so with the Sauti Cool Foundation. Tell us about this foundation.
I run a
What
foundation.
does Sauti Cool mean?
Powerful voices, because it's all about having a powerful voice. It's all about using your voice. It's all about being heard, expressing yourself, and what I do is I work with children and young people from the ages of 4 to 21, and we empower these young people to realize their own potential. And one of the key things we do with the young people is tell them that they are responsible for their destiny. They're responsible for their lives, and we call it...
This is in Kenya?
In Kenya, and we actually also work in Germany, and we're trying to reach out further. The pilot is in Kenya. So it's about being responsible for your own future. You are your future. You make your future. And that's everything I do around the work with young people is about that. And that's what our foundation does. We create platforms, we create spaces for education, spaces for creative thinking, for personality development, and for income generation. But realistic income generation based on the resources you have. Because I think one of the things we forget as Africans is, because we've been told very often that we're needy, we're poor, we see ourselves as victims. So this victim mentality,
beggarly.
and we're begging all the time. We're putting our hand out saying, give us, help us. I'm the victim, the help must come from outside. And what we try to do is tell young people, look at the resources you have. We have a lot of land, we have a lot of real natural resources, we have our own potential as a resource. So use that resource to generate an income, to gain a life that is that is dignified, that actually makes you financially independent. So we're trying to get rid of this dependency syndrome that is all over the continent, although we don't need to be dependent. So one of our biggest mantras is poverty is no excuse. And we work with the communities we work with on the basis of poverty is no excuse, and you're never completely poor. And that's what we try to fight against. But to be able to do that, people need to be exposed, they need to be educated. And that's where, and I have to say it, Story Moja comes into play. We need to be
smarter. Story Moja is a film festival
it's a book creative festival that we are having here in Ghana, in Accra, and it's based on, our theme is Smarter Africa, because we don't work smart. About the potential that we have, human potential, material potential, just the potential of this continent and what we can do. And this is something that I feel very, very strongly about. And that's what is incorporated in my work at Sautiku. It's trying to make us start waking up and thinking smart and stop being victims. Stop expecting the help from outside because it's coming from within.
So how did you do this? Because you, like every other woman, you know, on this continent, was born in a world where just by virtue of being born a woman, society places obstacles in your way. How did you rise above them? How did you surmount the hurdles?
I think it's about the realization of how these obstacles are placed and what you do with them. Because I think part of the obstacles being placed is because we've played into this idea that as a woman, you have a certain identity that you just have to accept.
Yes.
And you don't accept. You have a certain place in society. There are times when you do accept these places because you understand how the constellation works in terms of making life better for your community. But there are times when it disadvantages you that you have to question it. And that's why Sautiku, powerful voices, you must use your voice. You must be able to say, no, I don't want to be like this, or I want to determine my identity. We all have, in our cultures in particular, more so than in the West, the plan A. Our parents, our schools, our churches, our friends, they all have a plan for us, what we should be, how we should live our lives. But you also have to have a plan B. And that plan B counts, because even if it takes you till you're 30 or 40 to get there, you can get there. But you have to be strategic in your mind, how you function. And being strategic is about understanding who you are, appreciating yourself and valuing your place and your possibilities in this world. And I think in my part, on my part, I was just one of these young people, one of these children who would actually ask questions. I always asked why. And I tell young people that I work with is, you must ask, because when you ask, you have a 50% chance of getting a yes. If you don't ask, it's 100% no. So that's kind of how I've lived my life so far and dealt with my obstacles.
Talking about powerful women in politics, Hillary,
I have met Hillary.
Did you first meet her when she was opening to your brother in the primaries, or when?
I met her actually at the inauguration when my brother had actually done it.
I see. Yes, no, fantastic. What is she like? Because we've been following closely the election, you know, well, the run-up to the elections in the US, and I think it's a bit of a disappointment that in, you know, a very civilized place like the US, you'd find that the media, you know, is concentrating on issues from a gender perspective. How do you feel about this?
I think that is a time for women to realize that actually as a woman you have to really fight a lot harder to tell your own story, to create your own space and not wait for it to be given to you. Because again, the men are also in line for these positions, for these opportunities. And as a woman, don't expect to be given. And you can see that in the example of Hillary. I can't say I know her personally, I've met her, so I'm not going to even try to speak for her. But all I can say is the concentration on certain issues around what is going on with her, and if it's gender-based, needs to tell us as women that we need to fight harder. We need to create more women role models who the young girls can aspire to be like, so they're not afraid to try. Because if we still let the men constantly determine who we are, our identities, what we become, we still think that we don't have a place in determining that ourselves. And I think Hillary is fighting that fight in the biggest possible way. She's the biggest example of a woman's fight to a position.
Good point.
You know?
Do you think her election into office as president will trickle down positively on, you know, women all over the world, women in politics? Do you think?
I like the way you say her election into the
position, because I'm hoping
you're very
for
optimistic. I don't know at this point, but what I'm thinking is that it's really important to set a sign. But saying that as well, I think we shouldn't work with the affirmative action of saying, oh, just because I'm a woman, I have a right to have this position. You have to also be competent. And that has to come into play. So that's my message to young women, to girls, is you don't expect just because I'm a girl, it's my time. Your time is when you're qualified, when you're ready, when you're strong enough, when you're powerful enough to do it better. Because just to get into a position because you're a woman, you're going to make the same mistakes as the men are making if they're making them. So we want to have women who are competent, not just because they're women, but because they actually can do something. And part of doing that is educating yourself, working hard, getting into spaces that give you these opportunities, the right exposure. And we women must create that for our girls. We need to create that for each other.
A quick one. You know, the UNG, the 71st session of the UN General Assembly is ongoing right now, and we're due for an election to, you know, to get a new Secretary General. There are about 4 women in the running. Do you think that a woman at the helm of global affairs would make the world a better place?
I think it depends on the things I said before. Not just the woman because she's a woman. She has to be competent. She has to have the compassion, which we tend to do more because we have
want
the
to believe
nurturing
all
nature.
4 of them have what it takes.
If they have what it takes and they get in, then they deserve to be there. And they should not be penalized because they're women.
Yes, but would that make a difference?
I think with time, it will make a difference. But I think you can't expect that because a woman is in a position, it will turn the tables immediately.
Overnight.
We have a few women in power at the moment. We have Merkel. You know, we have a few women
Theresa
who are
May.
in position. You know,
Yeah.
so I think it's really about changing the dynamics in a general way in the whole world, and that it trickles down. Let's leave the women right at the top who have made it, who have struggled all those years. Let's talk about our girls back in the schools, the girls in our homes,
Yes.
in our communities.
Yes.
Let's go from that level, because
Yes.
my interest is in getting
From
all
the
young
grassroots.
girls, from the grassroots, getting all young girls to have the kind of confidence and the competency and enough material, enough to take that potential for being great leaders and make it possible. So that's why I do the work I do.
Yes,
That's
and that's one of the
all the
reasons
things
Story
right at the
Moja-
top.
Yes.
That's why Story Moja is
Yeah.
happening, because we're saying we need to go to the grassroots, because we've spread ourselves too thin, and we can name the women we think are special just on the 10 fingers of our hands.
Yes.
You know, we need to have many women that our young
Right.
people can turn to,
Right.
and that's why in educating them, exposing them, giving them the opportunities that we try to give them through Story Moja, through my work, that's when it's going to happen.
All
But
right.
we have to get off our, you know, and go out there and be part
and
of
then
it.
work. Yes.
You know.
Thank you so much. So we're not, you know, we're not done with you, because, like I said, for a lot of people, you're the closest we'll get to Barack Obama.